As a kid, I was mentally tortured for wanting to be kind. I was mentally tortured just for trying to be nice. Like, I remember whenever I tried to be gentle, well-mannered, whatever, family members or just people in my surrounding, they would interpret that as weakness. Since I was a kid, all I've been seeing is guns, people getting shot, people getting killed, weapons, drugs, terrorism on the streets all the time.
Welcome back to an episode of Inspiration for the Nation that you've never heard before. We've had people come here and say they've converted. Maybe they were an atheist before. They used to be Christian. They used to be a Buddhist. You never heard this kind of interview on this show. We interviewed Timor, who used to be a Muslim and practicing Islam, and now he is a full-fledged Jew. This episode breaks down the struggles and the choices he had to make in order to get to where he is today. In this episode, you will hear about our great friends at Tor Anytime and their time-limited opportunity that you have. So go ahead and check them out. You'll also hear about how you could get rid of your clothes for a good cause, the clothes that you're not wearing anymore, with our friends at PICKPURPLE. You'll also hear about the clothes that you should be bringing into your lives with our friends at Twillery and the code OFF. And you'll also hear about our friends at Bitban and how they can take your company to the next level with smart software dedicated and created specifically for you. This episode is in memory of Shimon David and Yaakov Shleima, as well as Miriam Sarbas Yaakov Moshe. Again, stick around to the very end. Very big personal news for Living L'Chaim. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Timor. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Timor, thank you so much for taking your time to do this. I have a lot to talk about with you. But first, could you take us all back to your childhood? What was your childhood like growing up as a Muslim following Islam?
If I were to try and tell you my story, I'm not sure what the correct order would be. I'm not sure if I could do that in a chronological order. So much happened. My memory can stretch all the way back to when I was 3. And even then, bad things were happening. And I see them in my head till this day, like a movie. One scene at a time from time to time. It's just like a movie. I watch one scene from the past when I dwell. And it's almost never positive. And I guess, that those bad experiences as a kid, they helped me deal with some of the things I've been going through in the past few years, or maybe even since forever and always, which is like isolation and loneliness. So since my childhood, I found it easier to be alone than be around people. And I think in general, because I always felt vulnerable around people. I feel much stronger when I'm by myself. I constantly keep myself in check. I stay grounded with my beliefs. I don't have a whispering bird in my ear to stop me whenever I want to do something or demotivate me. So whether it's something that is meant to fail or, a successful endeavor, it doesn't matter. So every year I'd compare myself to the person I was the year prior. I think it's very standard for human beings to do that. In growth and maturity, every year you look back and you're like, oh, I did that. So when I was mature enough to be able to question things, I questioned things. When I was mature enough to fight with words, I discovered the might to come out to the public with my conversion life story. I was very shy at first, very scared, very paranoid. Being an Arab and choosing to become Judaized, to become a Jew. And it's not just a faith thing, it's not just the belief. Of course, there's the religion aspect, the religious aspect, but it's not the only thing. You also have the cultural aspect. Judaism is a culture, a creed, a nation. So there are so many things that you have to accustom yourself to adapt and feel like you belong. It's not enough to just practice Judaism. You have to do many, many, many other things. So it was never an easy thing for me, as many people view Arab identity and Jewish identity as mutually exclusive, strictly dichotomous, if you could say. Others just find it all weird, all around. But I never let that get me. I never let that get to me. I always, I accept everyone, even the ones who find it hard to digest what I am. Most of my interactions have always been positive since I became a Jew. I want to get to I guess your conversion and what life has been like. But could you take us back to, I guess your family life? From what I understand, you didn't really know your father. What was your relationship with your mother like? What was your relationship with, I guess, your uncle and your cousins like? So I never met my father. I mean, I met my father only once, but I did not know he was my father, so it doesn't really count. I met my father once. It wasn't the best interaction. He was asking me a bunch of questions. I had no idea he was my dad. When the police came knocking on my door, and they came and they said, well, we need you to come. Your father passed away, etc., etc. That was the first time I realized that it was my father and that I once met him, years before he died. And it's so random. My mother, she consumed Al Jazeera her whole life. She's a Muslim, devoted Muslim, devout. She obviously does not accept my transformation. She does not accept the life I chose. To this day, I receive very negative messages from her, even though we have no relationship whatsoever. But, whenever there's a terrorist attack or whenever there is some Israeli aggression somewhere in Judea and Samaria, like in Jenin or something like that, whenever we have to take out terrorists, because all the time, we have terror attack attempts and attacks as well. So she would send me anti-Israel stuff. She would send me the Torah Karta stuff. She would tell me these are the real Jews. But she would also send me very anti-Semitic things most of the time, like you Jews, your day is coming, and other anti-Semitic tropes that she usually just. I don't even know how to explain my mother, but she's very, very violent with her messages. And my uncles, it was a mix, it was like a fusion. They were somewhere between terrorists and criminals. They did not really care so much about the state, but they weren't against the state in their actions, just in thought. In their actions, they were just criminals. They were thugs, and they do what criminals do, whether it's drugs, guns, whatever mafia people do. I'm not a mafia expert, I apologize. But whatever they do, it was always there, while at the same time, they were holding a very Muslim, Islamic appearance. Whether it's the robe they were wearing, whether it was the beards, whether it was the Quran, whether it was just just making dua all the time and going to the mosque and giving charity and doing all these things, pilgrimage. So these are my family members, more or less.
I have a question for you, particularly when I see, on the news, God forbid there's like a bombing or a suicide bombing or a terrorist attack and the terrorist gets neutralized and they get killed. You see sometimes on the news, like especially the mother of the terrorist celebrating and being so happy. And I guess from at least the Western culture, or just, I think any culture out of, I guess, that world, it's like shocking because like usually the mother or the parents are always like, okay, what could I do to ensure my kid lives a good life? Is that true? Is that like fake stuff happening, or is that like your experience with that as well?
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. It really depends on the individual. Many are very proud to raise their children to go kill and get killed, while others sometimes, they, I guess they're just riding the wagon. They're trying to capitalize on a situation, and they just do what they do so they can receive more money because they have big bonuses whenever they're able to kill a Jew. I have a friend who asked me multiple times to help him interrogate terrorists in Judea and Samaria because I'm fluent in Arabic, and they didn't always have the manpower to do things they needed to do, and they needed to know if they should let him go or not. So they called me and they had me asking questions for about 30 minutes on the phone, and it was his mother that gave him away. He was a terrorist. He was on his way to carry out a terror attack, and his mother knew it was happening. She called the police and she said, my son is about to commit a terrorist attack. Stop him. But she didn't care about him because apparently she and him, they had their own issues. She didn't care about him. I guess she just cared about herself. And I guess her household, people who live with her, they didn't want to lose their house. So it created some sort of deterrence for them, the thought that maybe it's not just the person who's carrying out the attack that's going to face the punishment. But I met a terrorist from Jenin once. I went undercover. That was about 1.5 years ago. And I was just pretending to be a tourist, taking pictures. And I met this guy and I was talking to him. I was being very nice, just trying to pick his brain and learn from him. I asked him, aren't people afraid? Aren't people scared to go out and commit terrorist attacks and lose you lose your home, your family, all these things? No. And he said to me, so what if they lose their house? We will build them a castle. So what if they're going to kick them out of the country? Wherever they're going, we are going to make sure they have millions. We'll make sure the term he used in Arabic is the crown on our heads. We'll make sure that wherever they are in the world, for what they did, there will always be a crown on our heads. And that's it's a very common standard belief among most Arabs that, when you carry out a terrorist attack, you should be praised. You're not a bad person. We had one guy like that in Jaffa, an Israeli Arab who carried out a terrorist attack. I believe he'd done it maybe 40 years ago, because about 10 years ago he was released from prison, and there was massive parties, celebrations all over Jaffa, the streets. But he killed a bunch of soldiers 40 years ago, and that was here in Jaffa. It was not in Judea, Samaria, or the West Bank. It was not in Gaza. It was not on a checkpoint. It was right here. So I always felt like there's what we see on the surface, and then there's the hidden truth, which is something most people don't want to really touch or know.
What was your mother like? Was she more the type and obviously it sounds like you didn't have the best relationship, but did she want you to be okay, just, live your life and do whatever it is? Or was she oh, I'll be proud if you kill yourself in the name of Allah or whatever?
Yeah, no, for me, she would always guilt me in growing up. Look at the kids in Gaza. Look at how they have nothing. Oh, look at these kids in the Dafe means West Bank. They have no shoes. They have no this. They have no that. So she would always try to make me feel bad about having more than them. But I don't know if that's true. She never told me to go out and do something like that, right? But whenever something happened, she would celebrate it. And I guess she would try to educate me to be happy as well when it happened. I was just 7 or 8 years old when 9/11 happened. And we were at home and people were dancing and chanting and screaming and, just a whistle sounds. It was a moment to celebrate that day for the Arabs, I guess, around the world, Arabs and Muslims. Israeli Arabs, no exception. So there was no radicalization on my behalf in terms of anything physical happening, like, you know what I mean? It was just pure hatred, anti-Semitic indoctrination that we were breastfed. But for me personally, I did not get to go through the violent path, mostly because my uncles were extremely violent. They were all criminals. And growing up, I always saw guns. I always saw weapons, grenades, anything, drugs. And these things they made me feel uncomfortable before I even knew what they were. Growing up, I never thought I was going to make it past 18 or so. And I never thought that there's life for me other than either prison or death. So I had to fight for my life, basically.
It's kind of scary because, I guess continuing on the trajectory of a life that, you were presented, it just seems like it's very hard and honestly not like a very long life. But the flip side is to leave that life, and I guess to even go down the path that you've taken is also, I imagine, very scary and not so simple.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say I'm brave, but I don't think I am. I did it. I don't know what, I don't even know what I was thinking, man. I'm telling you, like, when I converted, I knew so many bad things were going to come right after, but I told myself, do it. It's going to be worth it anyway. I told myself, like, you can't afford to even leave your place, Like a family member of mine when I was 19 years old, unfortunately, he's a very bad person. He scammed people, probably, worth millions. He's a con artist. That's his specialty. He's a con artist. Unfortunately, when I was 19, because we look alike, he managed somehow to fake a piece of document where he made it seem like I bought fish in like 200,000, like 250,000 shekels worth of fish, $250,000. And I was like,
that's a lot of fish.
Yeah. So I told the person who showed up at my door, and he was serving me that notice. And I was like, hello, I'm 19 years old. I guarantee you I did not buy fish in 250,000. So that really, really evil person, unfortunately, because of him, I lost my life, basically. I just woke up one day. I realized I cannot have a bank account. I cannot do anything. And, thanks to him, thanks to that incident, I'm not able to leave my place. I've been living here for many, many years. I have no Jewish neighbors. I'm the only Jew in the neighborhood. So you can imagine how difficult it is to go home sometimes with a kippah and a tzitzit and all these things. I recently, just a few months ago, I embraced that, but I didn't embrace it because I have, I'm not afraid of them or anything. I started teaching because I'm not a teacher. So I started teaching in the morning, in some secular schools. And I thought it would be maybe, more appropriate if I just keep my hat on, just because I look a bit strange, it's just like, it's hard to digest me. Most of the time, the kids I teach, high school kids, or just even, third graders, fourth, they don't know my story. They don't know who I am. And I try to keep it quiet. They mostly go through months and months without knowing. I recently got exposed because one of the kids saw me on TV. I was on the news, and he ran to his dad. He's like, I know him. That's my teacher. And then his dad came to school to look at me, and they're like, oh, wow, impressive, nice story. And then the next day, everybody knows. So it's crazy. It comes with fear, with pain, with happiness, joy, sadness, moments where you feel loneliness. It comes with like just a a melting, it's a melting pot of emotions. I can't describe it, but, it's definitely never negative, I think. Even when people struggle to understand me or to understand what I am, it doesn't feel negative.
Here's a quick message from our friends at Tor Anytime.
Shimon Kolyakov here from Tor Anytime, and you're not going to believe what Tor Anytime is doing. For the first time ever, for absolutely no charge, Tor Anytime is accepting names and yahrzeit dates of your loved ones who have passed on. And on the upcoming yahrzeit, we will dedicate all the learning on Tor Anytime, which is over 30,000 hours a day, in their schus, in their memory, in their honor. We will put their name on the homepage of Tor Anytime. And there's nothing greater you can do for a loved one who passed away than to learn Torah in their schus. So I encourage you to take full advantage of this free program. It's a free public service for a limited time. It doesn't matter when the yahrzeit is throughout the year. As long as you give us their name and yahrzeit date right now, we will include it on the upcoming yahrzeit for no charge. And if you don't have the Hebrew date, just give us the English date with the year and we'll convert it for you. We could only take a maximum of 8 names per household. So take advantage of this and let other people know about it as well. It's freededication.com.
Thank you so much, Rabbi, for that message. Guys, you all heard it here. Go ahead. It's gonna change the way how we approach yahrzeits. And here is your opportunity. It's literally one-time thing. So go ahead and check it out. Eli Langer, host of Kosher Money. What do you have to say about the magic of Bitban?
So Bitban, in a nutshell, creates custom software. But what does that mean? Let's do some role play.
Let's get it.
Okay. Your name is Jeff.
Okay.
Jeff,
What's your name?
I'm Ellie. I'm not changing.
I don't know if I see you as an Ellie. Okay, fine.
Jeff, you work in the healthcare industry.
I have a mustache also.
Specifically, you've worked for healthcare companies and you have an understanding that nursing homes and assisted living facilities have a tremendous amount of billing, right?
There's a lot of billing there.
They have patients, billing needs to happen. Sometimes they outsource that. So you said, hey, I know how this business works. I'm going to create my own business and help other facilities and bring on more clients
and make more money,
build a business out. So Jeff, you have 3 clients. You have 10 employees. Things are working great.
Great.
Now I have excellent news for you. You just signed a big account. Now you have 25 clients.
I'm very excited, but I'm also a little nervous.
So when it comes to billing, there are uploads of documents, faxed papers that have to come through, tons of moving parts. You can already start to see that you're now going to have to hire and hire and hire and hire, which is great. You do need a core team. But what if I told you that there was a way to save on not just employee salaries and hiring, but also you can save on process?
I would ask you, how do I do that?
Bitban. So you would speak with them. They would understand the core pieces of your business, how you're operating, communicating with those facilities, and then build a custom solution, not just you telling them what to build, but they have a good understanding of what software you would need. And you would literally save hundreds and hundreds of hours a month with clean process. You'd be able to sleep at night. And oh, by the way, you can go from 30 clients to 300 clients because the software works for you.
I love that. That's great. I actually got to meet the people at Bitban. They're like, Yaakov, I'm like, please call me Jeff. Like, what? I'm like, we're going to do an ad that it's a long story. They were confused about that, but everything else was great when I went there, met with them. Very smart, intelligent. And you mentioned this.
Yeah.
Kind.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice people to deal with. So if you're ever in Lakewood and you want a tour, I could give, my alter ego, Jeff, could give you a tour. But more importantly, go to bitban.com to learn more about how they're going to take your business to the next level. Thank you, Ellie. And now back.
And now back to this week's episode.
Got me there. My question for you is, why did you go to Judaism? You know, sometimes if someone has a negative experience when it comes to religion, they basically just drop religion as a whole. And especially because of the background that you, I guess, were fed of like how, in quotes, bad Jews are. Why would you then say like, okay, let me become Jewish?
Yeah. So first of all, growing up, I was raised to hate Jews. I struggle, to say those words. It's like it hurts when when I say those words, because I am a Jew today. So like, I feel like, okay, so you hate yourself. As a kid, you hated what you've always been, because I tell myself I've always been a Jew. And when I converted, that's what I told the Dayanim and the Bitban, the judges in the court. I told them, I've always been a Jew. Because when they asked me, like, what do you want to convert? I said, I have no idea, but I know I've always been a Jew. And what made me, that's actually funny, because later on, after I finished my conversion, I took a DNA test, and I do have Jewish heritage. But that's not the point here. So I became a Jew because, and not an atheist or a Christian, because I had very, very bad experiences with Muslims and Arabs my whole life, and not always on a personal level. So it might not be even related to me. It could be just an Arab Muslim who has issues with a Christian or with a Jew or a black person or that person or a white person. It doesn't matter. So growing up, I always sensed this hostility. I always sensed like I'm not part of these people. And I was like, as a kid, I was mentally tortured for wanting to be kind. I was mentally tortured just for trying to be nice. Like, I remember whenever I tried to be gentle, well-mannered, whatever, family members or just people in my surrounding, they would interpret that as weakness. Since I was a kid, all I've been seeing is guns, people getting shot, people getting killed, weapons, drugs, terrorism on the streets all the time. It was the Oslo Accord days. So we had a terrorist attack almost every single day in Tel Aviv, restaurants, pubs, on the buses. And it was just a very traumatizing experience for me. And as a kid, I always felt this danger. I felt this, thing I can't explain, like this dark cloud that is just around my family. And I remember as a kid, once I yelled at some of my uncles, because I have 14. And I yelled at one of my uncles and I said, Fish khair min warakum. Which means there's no khair, the word to translate that word. It's more than good. It's like there's no benefit. Pure? Not even pure. It's like I could say there's nothing beneficent. There's nothing beneficent.
Beneficial.
Beneficial. There's nothing beneficial in you people, that like there's no good in you. There's nothing good about you. So khair is something that brings peace, something that brings peace to your home, brings peace to your life, brings peace to your parnasah, to your everything. So I told them that, and I got the living hell. They beat me that day, and these were adults. These were people in their 30s, and I was just like, 10, 12. When I was 6 years old, 7 years old, I was forced to smuggle burners into prison cells because when I was that young, for whatever reason, the security guards in prison and the penitentiary, they wouldn't even like check me. I don't know why. And we're talking about like 1999, 2000. Back then, the security wasn't as good as today. Even CCTV back then, they looked like potatoes. So I had many reasons to continue my spiritual, moral path, which I always felt like it was intertwined with, the Bible as well. Because when I was 5, I did learn the Bible. I went to a French school. We had the Tanakh. And they would teach us some stories. So my mother went and bought me, because I begged her to. I begged her to buy me those, what's it called? Those tapes, videotapes. We didn't even have DVDs back then. That was before DVDs came out. And I asked her if she could buy me some movies. And she went and she got me Giborei Tanakh HaGdolim, which means the biblical heroes, the greatest biblical heroes. And it was just a movie series, and it was just a biblical movie series, and I just loved it. And I loved every single character. And I had a Tanakh at home because we had that class at school, even though it was just once a week. So once a week you had 1 hour, which was Tanakh hour. So I went to the Tanakh, I opened it, and I began looking for the stories that I was just watching, because I was so intrigued and I wanted to know more. So that's, I guess, that was my first crush with the Tanakh. That was the first time we basically touched base, and it became like a very dear piece of document for me. It was very dear to my heart. And even though I was a practicing Muslim, I always told myself, like, this book was true at one point, because that's what, that's the Muslim belief. The Islamic belief is that the book has been corrupted, but at one point it was true. So as a kid, I kept, I believed in that notion. So I did not, I wasn't fully anti-Judaism or anything of the sort. It's just I was brainwashed to believe that, for example, they taught us as kids that the Jewish people are punished because they worship a golden calf. You know what I mean? But then they don't, they completely neglect the fact that so much happened since, like, after that point. And it's that, and that's the thing about Islam, is that there's no chronological order in the book. The very first chapter can talk about the Messiah. The second chapter can talk about Moses. The third chapter can talk about Muhammad. The fifth chapter can talk about Adam being born for the first time. The 20th chapter can talk about, how God created the Quran before anything else. But he would say like this: God created the Quran and then taught the man. And like, he taught the Quran to the man. But then you ask yourself, like, shouldn't he create man first and then teach him the Quran? But they stole that from the Torah as well. And I was just intrigued. I guess I just wanted to learn more and more and more about Islam. I also had a hard time defending many accusations that people had against Islam while I was traveling the world. When I was 17 years old, I left Israel and I began my very, very long journey abroad. So many countries, so many continents. And the more I found out about Islam, the more disappointed I became. It was a slap in my face, for sure. In the beginning, I was so traumatized. I felt like Plato with the allegory of the cave. Like when he comes out of the cave and he's never seen sunlight before. So he's just like blinded by the sun rays and he doesn't understand what's happening. He's dizzy now. So that's how I felt when I was researching, and I found out that Islam is not a legitimate religion. I realized how much they stole from the Jews. I began, this crazy obsession with just reading and researching and reading. Eventually, I found out that there was a Jewish guy who hated his community for whatever reason. His name is Ya'qub ben Shalom. Ya'qub ben Shalom was a Yemenite Jew. He was alive during Muhammad's era. Ya'qub ben Shalom taught Muhammad and his gang pretty much everything they needed to know about Judaism. And even Muhammad, he would go and he would tell the Jews, Allah praised the way you purify yourselves. Why don't you show me? And then they taught him how to do netilat yadayim. In Arabic, in Islam, the action is called wudu. Obviously, in Islam, they have to overdo everything. So in Judaism, it's netilat yadayim. In Islam, it's pretty much the same thing. 3 times you wash, except it's not just your hands. You wash all the way to your elbow. You wash your knees as well, your kneecap, your feet, your ears, your nose, your mouth. And if you think about Yom Kippur, which by the way is my favorite day of the year, and Yom Kippur, Ramadan is just Yom Kippur times 30. It's a month of atonement. It's a month where you fast. A month where, pretty much everything you're not supposed to do in Yom Kippur for a whole month. And just from sunrise till sunset. So I was just baffled, I guess, by by so many things. Whenever I asked, I never received satisfactory answers. I was never really happy with what they had to offer. I decided to leave. I was always a spiritual person. I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that there is no God. I told myself that that's impossible. I know that there's God. I don't know if God has a book. I don't know if people just have their own beautiful experience where they feel like they've been touched by God, so they do whatever they do. They either become hippies or they meditate or they do whatever it is they do. For me personally, I found a lot of passion in the Aramaic and Hebrew language. I was just obsessed with both. I always felt power whenever I read or wrote or spoke Hebrew, which was very difficult for me to explain. And I always just loved the sound of the Aramaic language. So I found myself sitting down at home long before I even contemplated becoming a Jew. I'll just sit down and memorize quotes and sayings in Aramaic, religious ones, and I would just love the sound of them. And that's, one thing led to another, and somehow, someday, I found myself just calling the rabbinate in Israel and telling them, hey, so 1, 2, 3, I want to become a Jew. And they say, why? I was like, well, because I've always been a Jew. That was literally my answer. I didn't know what else, I didn't even know what else to say. So the more Jews I met during my conversion journey, the more they told me I remind them of like an authentic ancient Jew. So I was like, okay, that's a compliment. I'll take it.
I would imagine that it's so scary to be you, especially you're like still living amongst, I guess people that probably aren't happy with you. What gives you the courage to even come on this podcast? But I've obviously seen you around. What gives you the courage to just speak up? Because you could have just gone and become Jewish and then live your life as a Jew and not really, promote your background and stuff like that.
When I was converting, I knew that this is about to be a very, very irregular conversion. Most people who convert, they do it because, I'm generalizing here. It really depends on where they're converting from. I'll just generalize Arab converts because I feel like I can. Because there are Arab Muslim converts who convert to Judaism. From my experience meeting them, 99.99% of the time, they do it because they're in a relationship with a Jewish woman. And sometimes her parents or something like that, they tell her that, she can't do that because, it's a very obvious thing that she can't do that. But I told myself in the beginning, A, you don't have a Jewish woman, so you don't have to worry about that. B, don't expect anyone to accept you. So if anyone accepts you, that's a big bonus. Luckily for me, many, many, many accept me. The vast majority do. Almost every single person I ever met accepted me, I feel. But I told myself also, just know that no matter what, you're a strange chicken. You're like a black wolf in your family, and here, don't expect things to be, like sunshine and rainbows. This is not what it's about. A, you just got closer to God. You made the covenant. Now you are Abraham. Now you did what he did. You took Avram and turned it to Abraham. You took Tamar, which is my birth name, and you turned it into Timor. It was just like that. I took Yud and Vav, E-O, which are 2 letters from God's name. And I just told myself, now you are on a mission. You are on a spiritual quest. You are going to talk to God every single day. And you have to get these thoughts out there. Thoughts, beliefs, opinions, knowledge about the Arab world, Arab culture, and the Muslim world. Sometimes I feel like I was inclined to become this activist even before I converted. But when I was converting, I wasn't thinking about activism as much. I was just trying to live. I was trying to find a reason to live. I was trying to find happiness in the world. I was trying to find answers, just answers. I believe every single person out there asks themselves, why are we here? Who are we? What's the point to all of this? Is there a point to all of this? We have to, we kind of have to make a point. And eventually one day, something just like that. I grabbed the camera. I told myself, you have video skills. Take the camera, sit in front of the camera, and just share what's on your mind. So I sat down and I began sharing stories. I sat down and I talked about a group of Arabs that I met in Holland. They were working in a restaurant. I went and I bought a burger, and they obviously didn't know I could understand Arabic because I was the only client in the restaurant. I was the only customer. And they were just threatening to kill each other while I was having the burger. I was just like, I'm taking a bite. And in the very first bite, the guy was telling the other person that he was going to slit his throat and that he was going to mop the floor with his blood. The other guy told him, you just wait, wait till I go and I see your sister. I know where she lives. Don't you forget that. I'm going to do that as soon as this shift is over. And I was just like sitting there. I was like, is this real? Because that did not stop for like minutes on minutes. They were just like, I thought they were going to kill each other on the spot. And wherever I went, it doesn't matter. Wherever I went, I always saw this ugliness in these people. When I was living in Thailand, for years. I would meet Arabs that would come and visit, and they would sit at restaurants, and I can understand them while everyone else can. And they have this thing that I hate so much, where they are disrespecting everyone that is sitting there. They're mocking them because they don't understand the language. And then in English, they sound totally different. And like I could spot the hypocrisy. And one day, this Arab guy just gets up, goes to this person, and that person realized, I guess he was a Thai person that does not speak English. But the other guy was speaking to him in Arabic, and he was telling him, awful things that he was going to do to his wife, etc., etc. The Thai person, for whatever reason, he knew what was happening, and I was there. And he just grabbed an axe. He had like an axe, and he hit him with that axe. He got him in the collarbone. And the guy was rushed to the hospital. He needed surgery on the spot because he was going to die. So I just began sharing these stories, sharing my interactions with Arab Muslims here around the world, talking about Israel, talking about like Jewish people, talking about the Arab Muslim culture, upbringing. And, one thing led to another, and it became a truth-telling, storytelling vibe, my whole platform thing, That's what it is. I don't consider myself to be a hasbara person, even though on Israeli news channels, they tend to call me like the Arab Muslim who became a Jew, Shahid Gael, and now does wonderful advocacy for Israel, hasbara, Am Israel, etc., etc. But I feel like I'm a truth teller more than a hasbara person.
That's very powerful. We'll be right back this week's episode, but I am very excited to tell you all about Pick Purple, primarily because I lived in a building in Farakwe, and I don't know, every 3 weeks or something like that, there would be tons of garbage bags, white garbage bags with the words written in marker, Pick Purple. And I was pretty confused. I'm like, what is this? I went to my wife and she told me, she's like, oh, we actually gave a bunch of our stuff to Pick Purple. I'm like, what's Pick Purple? She's like, it's very simple. Pick Purple is a nonprofit organization that helps people in need, and they take the clothing and sometimes they give it directly to them. Sometimes they sell it, and like you could buy a gorgeous suit for $1 because someone's like, hey, I don't need this anymore. And they help those in need who don't have clothes. Basically taking your, in quotes, garbage or clothing that you're like, I don't need this anymore. Of course, don't like give them your like totally ripped up shirt, but give them the clothes that you're not wearing anymore. And those in need will get it at an incredible price. Again, they're a nonprofit, and when they make money off anything that they sell or give to others, well, I should say sell, then what happens is they take that money and it all goes towards Project Batya, which PickPurple is under. Batya essentially helps girls who are in high schools, who are struggling, who need it's curative. They help them connect more to their Judaism and to their Jewish roots. And it obviously helps those girls more than just in high school, literally throughout their life. Batya is a beautiful project. So PickPurple is amazing because I think most importantly, your clothing that you have that you're not going to wear anymore, or it's just going to sit in your closet for another like 5 months to 10 years, will actually be worn by people in need. And those people in need will actually benefit and at really, really great reduced prices. And of course, the proceeds from that all go directly to Batya to help those girls find their Jewish roots. So it's a win, win, win. And the process, I kid you not, I did this before because I literally have stuff to give PickPurple because we've been using it for now, I don't know, like 4 years, is so simple. Go to pickpurple.org and you will literally follow it out. They'll say, the process is so simple. They pick it up from you. They take it from your house. You put it in like a garbage bag. You mark it as PickPurple. They drop it all, put it outside your house from 9 a.m. to, 5 p.m. Someone will come pick it up. Bada bing, bada boom. You don't need to do anything. Better service than the garbage man. They actually come to your door. And actually, it goes to people in need. So go to pickpurple.org. We know Pesach's coming up, so you probably are cleaning up. And that tells me why we should talk about Twillory now, because PickPurple is further complimentary, because you might be thinking, hey, I need an update to my wardrobe. I want to get clothing that's actually going to last, that I don't need to throw out or give away. And that's why I love Twillory. And personally, I have like 20 pairs of pants, not from Twillory, that they're great pairs of pants. And I'm like, but I haven't worn them since I started advertising for Twillory. That's why I gave them PickPurple. But Twillory's pants last. I've said this before. I have pants that lasted me for over 5 years. I am right now, these Shabbos, I'm rocking their ear suit, which is this brilliant technology, just makes this suit breathable. I kid you not, you probably will not want to wear other suits after that. So go ahead and check that out. But you're thinking, hey, do I still get that discount? Yes, you do. You get $18 off with the code word INSPIRE. Get their ear suit, get their pants. We're going to talk about their other incredible items, their shirts, their polos, so much more next week. Now back to our conversation. Since October 7th, there's been a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism going on that maybe it's been there in the background, but now it's at the forefront. I'm seeing myself, so many lies being told, so much distortion. What are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, the word distortion is definitely spot on. They are so good at this. They've become so sophisticated at distorting things, taking things out of context and blowing things out of proportionality. I've felt that since the very first day, when my mother sent me, she sent me an Al Jazeera piece. I'm not sure if it was Al Jazeera or maybe something else, but they were trying to say that there were no rapes and that innocent civilians weren't murdered, only soldiers, and that the civilians were murdered by the soldiers. Some ridiculous stuff. So distortion, that's the word. I'm seeing it everywhere for sure. From, even we have some, unfortunately, we have some awful journalists within Israel. We don't even know what they're talking about. We had that one journalist from Haaretz who went and said that the Israeli helicopter was shooting the people at the festival. That turned out to be not true, but it took him a week to correct himself. And, that cost us many anti-Semitic pieces out there from Al Jazeera and their friends. And not just them. I think we had Raviv Drukel, a journalist that is a major star in Al Jazeera right now. Aviv Drucker is a Channel 13 journalist. For whatever reason, he said what he said. I don't want to even repeat what he said, but anyone can just Google his name. It has millions of views on Al Jazeera as well. So unfortunately, we don't have the best ambassadors, and I guess they kind of, but we don't, it doesn't even need to be that, when we mess up, they just take advantage, they capitalize, but the world is, inherently anti-Semitic, even the ones who pretend like they're not, they are. I felt that traveling the world. I felt that here after October 7th, when I was seeing the celebrations, the Arabs here were celebrating. And whenever there was like a rocket that went off, a siren, my neighbors, I even have I have recordings on my phone, video recordings of my neighbors celebrating, just chanting, clapping, being extremely happy. It's not unusual, growing up. I've seen this. I've seen this at school. I've seen this everywhere. When Gilad Shalit was kidnapped and everyone danced and clapped and celebrated 9/11, the Iraq war, even though Iraq was losing. But, they were happy. They thought, Iraq was going to win. It's the culture of, the cult of death, this thing.
Listen, I mean, I understand how we see it as evil, but I'm sure in their heads, they're not looking at it like they're evil.
Of course not.
Like how do they justify it?
Well, first of all, you, the Jew, and I, I'm very proud to be your brother right now. But you, the Jew, you're a liar. You're a master of deception. You're a thief. You're this, you're that. That's what you're fed from the day you're born. So they inherently victimize themselves, and what you're seeing is, you're just witnessing the evolution of a product that just victimized itself for so long, where they always feel for themselves, but see you as the enemy, and they don't think that they're bad people for killing you. They think they're going to heaven. They think they're doing their social circle great justice by taking you out. Definitely.
Well, that's scary.
Yes.
That's very scary.
Yes.
As we wrap up, because
Yes.
I feel like I could talk to you for like literally 5 hours and be fascinated. If there was one person in history, could be from the Chumash, from the Bible, it could be, from 50 years ago, that if you could sit down with for an hour, who would it be?
Wow. You're tackling me here. So many. Wow.
You get one.
I get one. Okay. I will take Musa bin Maymun. I will take Rabbeinu Moshe ben Mimon. I think
Rambam.
the Rambam, Maimonides. I think he's an exceptional character. To me, he's almost a prophet, really. I enjoy reading his Igerot, his epistles, the Yemen epistle, especially that one. I memorized parts of it just because it's so beautiful and so relevant to this day. It has to be him. On account of our sins, God has cast us into the midst of this people, the nation of Ishmael. And as in Hebrew, it's Yadua lachem Yisrael achinu, shakadosh baruch hu hipilenu b'mahamarot avonotenu letokh omah zo sheyimat Ishmael, who always devise ways to harm us and to debase us, and no nation has ever done more harm to Israel than Ishmael. So I definitely recommend to anyone who's never read the Yemen epistle to read it by the Rambam. If you know Hebrew, read it in Hebrew, because he wrote it like a song. So at the end of every sentence, it actually rhymes. And if it doesn't rhyme, then it's going to rhyme in 2 or 3 sentences. So it's just, the Rambam is someone I dreamt about the Rambam a lot. That's why I say I wish I could talk to him, because I talked to him in my dreams, but I don't know if in my dreams it was him or it's just my subconscious looking like him, talking like him. So
What does he say in your dreams?
Tips, help. Sometimes because I have his books here. I have the Sifriyat Kodesh here, a mini one. I think about his ideas a lot. I think about even like the Guide to the Perplexed. I remember I met this Jew who was trying to talk me out of Judaism. A Jew. Yeah, he was trying to talk me out of Judaism. And he was telling me, look, this is a good book. You should read this. This is a good book. And I read it, and then he was trying to like summarize it for me. He was trying to give me the gist. I'm like, I think you don't understand it. And I think you forgot that this book was written in Arabic. Basically, any Arabic speaker could read this book. And I think he was trying to do something good here, but you're misinterpreting his words. And in my dreams, I don't want to go into details, but I had incidents where I was going through massive dilemmas. And in my dream, he popped and I was just asking for advice. And it was very painful topics and moments in my life when I spoke to him about these things. So that's why I found it extremely difficult to believe. I'm like, is this him or is this me? What is this? Or am I imagining this? I mean, it's a dream, but dreams can be tricky. They can be extremely tricky. And I, as someone who unfortunately grew up with night terrors, and night terrors are a parasomnia, what is it? Forgot the name of that thing, condition. It's just like nightmares, but worse. It's when you don't know if you're awake or not, and you're dreaming, and it's always a bad dream, and you're always going to die in that dream. So these are night terrors. But he wasn't in my night terrors. He was never in any of my night terrors. No.
Right, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Out of the 613 mitzvahs, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Is there one in particular that means a little more to you than the rest?
I think the one that means the most is Ve'afta le'erecha kamocha, and you shall love to yourself. You should love for your neighbor what you love for yourself. Something, somewhere along these lines. I unfortunately, in the beginning when I was converting, I feel like I did not understand this aspect enough. Unfortunately, the Jewish people only after traumas come together and remember who they are and remember that people time after time, they've been trying to kill them, us, and now it's, the time to hug it out and, be together again. So when I converted, I did not take this whole achdut very seriously. And I have been now, I guess, since the war, just, to love and accept unconditionally and hug and be okay even with those who disagree with you. It doesn't matter what they believe in or if they don't believe in anything, secular, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Hasidi, Yemenite, Orthodox, Reform. Like, I just, I woke up one day, I'm like, we should love a little more. We should love everyone a little more. And that was the day I think I took that mitzvah and I began really applying it, just to be more understanding of others and understand that sometimes when people behave in a certain way, it's because they feel pain that you can't see. And that's why they're reacting the way they're reacting. But the same way you can't control the way you react sometimes, I feel like others can do that as well. So we should just show more love to everyone. And that's a great commandment, I think, to live by.
That's really mature and a really beautiful answer. So, the last question for you is, it's more of advice for someone who's watching this. And, actually, before we get to that, what's like, where's your future? Where do you see your future? Like, are you looking to move out of the community that you're in? Do you want to move to a more Jewish community? Do you want to move to America? Do you want to get married? I don't even know. I assume you're single. I'm not even sure. So just, I guess, tell us about like what your hopes are.
Yeah, I am single. In terms of my future, I guess what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to build myself. And I guess when I'll feel ready and I feel mature enough to get married, but at the same time, I feel like I'm not, because part of that maturity comes with, you need money to have a family. You got to take care of your wife. You got to take care of your kids. You got to take care of everyone. And sometimes it's not just your wife. When you get married, you marry your wife's family. All of a sudden, you're married with her parents as well and her family, and it's tough. So when that does, when that day does come, I just want to be prepared. I want to be ready. I don't want to be caught with my guard down. I want to do it the way it should be done. So it's just a matter of time. And in terms of leaving, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I want to leave, but most of the time I don't. When do I want to leave? When I guess, I come across Arabs who are extremely negative, or I get into like a verbal conflict with people because of my decisions to convert, etc., etc. Or sometimes, just when I express my political opinion or I just share, some political insights given my upbringing, sometimes Jews get extremely offended. And when they get offended, I feel like it hurts them. And then I guess that hurts. And at that moment, I kind of don't want to be around because I feel ashamed. And I feel like, oh, maybe I should have said something else. Maybe it should have been different words, yada, yada, yada. But it's a learning process. Sometimes I go hard on myself. I am my own worst critic, but I tell myself, look, it's a learning process. Today you spoke to that person and you came off, as too right-wing, and next time try again, try to appear less right-wing. Just because, I believe in certain values, and I believe in Eretz Israel Shlema. I believe that, if non-Jews want to be here, they are welcome to stay, but they should understand what this place is, not fight it, not resist, and just live a good life, They don't need political aspirations to live a good life. I just don't understand why they need that. So, sometimes some Jews don't really like my answers because they're just brought up in a certain way to believe in certain set of values,
And what do you do for Shabbos? Do you walk over to people for meals? You do your own thing?
So for Shabbos, most of the time I do it by myself, but whenever I don't do it by myself, I go to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the Rebbe Mebichkov, Rav David Nissenbaum. It's an Ashkenazi Hungarian shul, Nosach Sfard, which is like Hasidic. I really enjoy going there. I've been going there for 2-3 years now, I think, about 3 years. I've done many, many holidays with them. I have some, American and British acquaintances that I've met during the past couple of years, and they invite me sometimes during holidays. In Rosh Hashanah, I spent it with a British family. Last Pesach, again, I spent it with a British family. So I do get invited from time to time to, I get hosted in holidays and, but most of the time I just go to a nearby shul.
And I saw in a different interview, you're practicing Yemenite.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Correct.
Why do you flock towards being a Yemenite as opposed to Ashkenazi or Sephardi?
Well, Yemenites are a minority. Their culture and rituals all mysterious. I wanted to be I wanted to be let in on a secret. I was looking for the most authentic, oldest Nosach. How do you say Nosach in English? I'm curious.
It's a
good question, huh?
Yeah, I'm not the wordiest person, but Nosach would be
like a prayer text.
Prayer rendition? I'm not exactly sure.
Like
There's
that.
one word.
Yeah, so I just love theirs.
Like a style of prayer.
A style of prayer, yeah, we could say a style of prayer. I heard their Kaddish the first time before I heard any Jewish prayer ever. I heard the Yemenite Kaddish. I cried for 3 days straight. It really felt like it was speaking to my soul. It was like directly speaking to my soul. And the Yemenite Kaddish is just so, no offense, but it's so much more powerful than every other Kaddish out there. I even spoke to the Rebbe about it, and he mentioned a crazy story about how he got emotional many, many years ago when he and his father, his father was the older Rebbe, but when he passed, his son became the Rebbe. His father had a Yemenite friend, and he told me, it's crazy how the Yemenites are so dark and we are so white, but we are so similar. And he was telling us, like, we are so similar. We are, like, he's referring to Ashkenazim and Yemenites because they pronounce words we pronounce words very similarly. Like, for example, we say donoi, I'm not saying the at the beginning, but like we say donoi, and Yemenites and Ashkenazim say the same. Sfaradim don't, they say it different. And just in general, I guess, many, many things. And he mentioned the Kaddish as well. They have a very, very, very long Kaddish, like maybe 4 minutes long. There are extra paragraphs there. And the Kiddush for Shabbat is a bit longer too. So I remember the first time I went and I had to do Kiddush because I showed up late to the Shabbat table and they already started eating. So I did Kiddush on the table and they all stared at me. They all stared at me and they didn't understand, but it was a Yemenite Kiddush and it's like, Yom Hashishi Wichulu Hashemayim Oras Vachol. So it's like, they're looking at me like, what? Where is that coming from? Like, you do not have a Yemenite accent when you speak, but that's a Yemenite accent when you pray. I'm like, yeah, I got used to it. So yeah, I just fell in love with the Yemenite culture, Yemenite prayer, everything Yemenite, all day.
I love that. Okay, so I want to ask you for advice for anyone who's watching that's going through a troubling time. They're not exactly sure how to navigate their life. What advice do you have for them to take it to the next level?
First of all, that too shall pass. It's not going to be raining forever. Eventually that storm is gonna wear out. I think the best advice I could give is people should really understand that relationships are probably the most valuable thing you have in your life. So it doesn't matter who you meet. Try to be nice to everyone. Try to be loving and caring and kind. You never know where you will meet that person, when you'll meet that person. And when you do meet again, the tides might turn, and I don't even know how to explain it, but it's better to bond with people and build a really strong relationship with them than just, make them strangers. And it's not going to last forever, whatever pain you're going through. Sometimes you just gotta get up and look at life and be like, hey, look, you hit like a bee. I'm not gonna stay down. I'm not gonna be on my knees. I will fight back. It's hard. It's difficult, but Hashem helps. He helps everyone. As the Birkat Hamazon says, Ki hu el-hayy farnis lakol v'shulhanu aruch lakol v'yitkim mihya u'mazon lechol biryotav asher bara, for all of his creations. So I think if you feel down, don't. It's just a matter of time. We'll all go through that. It's not just you.
Really powerful. Timor, if someone wants to follow along your journey, where are the best places that they could see you?
The best place to find me right now is definitely on Instagram. I get a lot of hits there and a lot of people message me all the time, and I think that's the place. Instagram and YouTube. Timor Aklin, Timor-Aklin. Timor Aklin. That's my name. It's everywhere, all over social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all same name.
Okay, amazing. Timor, thank you so much. Thank you for opening up about your journey.
Thank you.
And anyone who's watching or listening, I got to tell them all to go follow you. That's where I first got introduced to you. And you're putting out good stuff and you're changing the world. So thanks again for doing this.
Thank you. I will humbly accept your kind compliment. I don't know if I'm changing the world. I just know I'm sharing my truth and the truth.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. The word that I want you to type on YouTube or Spotify, if you're still watching or listening, is the word brave. B-R-A-V-E, brave. Timor is someone who is brave, whether he feels it or not. I saw it. I'm sure you see it and feel it. What a person, what a yid. And yeah, people like him are so big in my eyes. And he, you know, these are the kind of episodes where I'm like, this is someone who's an inspiration for the nation, as cliche as that sounds. Big news that I'm going to announce that you may already kind of know if you're watching this, but before that, I just want to remind you to go to freededication.com with our friends at Tor Anytime to get that free dedication. Go ahead, check it out. And if you have any clothes that you want to just get rid of, hit the link in the bottom with PICKPURPLE. You will be able to get it picked up. So easy, so simple. I use it, I love it. If you haven't yet picked up anything from Twillery, go ahead, check them out. You will be buying clothing that will last you for a long time. And that's why I love that investment. Also, you're gonna look good and feel good. And last but, and obviously use a code word inspire. Last but not least, go ahead and check out our friends at Bitban. Even if you're not sure if your company can use them, give them a call. They're very easy to talk to, but you'll be shocked, you'll be surprised. And I wanna say something here. This is why I love Bitban, because I'm transitioning into our setup. We have been in this studio where I'm recording this right now for at least for the podcasts for like 3 years. And we never really invested in a crazy setup because we always said, like, let's make sure the system works. The problem is I personally have to hit record on a few cameras, on a mixer, the lights, then unloading it, and then plugging it in, and then loading everything. It's just been a mess. And people like Bitban, the company like Bitban, what they do is they go and they understand what's going on with your company. Right now I'm talking about a podcast, but they understand what's going on in your company, and they say, how do we solve all those issues that's gonna cost you a lot of time and energy, and why don't we fix that system? So we took that idea from Bitban and we hired an incredible team to help us turn what we feel Living L'Chaim is. This has been literally since the summer. And we actually started working on it in September. The brand new Living L'Chaim studios, which we definitely have a few episodes still in the bag that you'll see the studio still, but sadly the studio is going away. You'll see our brand new gorgeous studio that, like this mentality from Bitban of like, I am wasting so much time on the process of uploading and the mistakes that are happening, and then just getting it all in and looking as great as possible. If you watch this interview, I did a little test run over here with just the Zoom camera. There's a lot more coming. And if you have a company that you're like, hey, I would love it to be called the XYZ Studio, you could be on every single podcast of Living L'Chaim. So you definitely could reach out. There'll be a link in the show notes to our WhatsApp. But I'm very excited for the conversations, ideas, and messages that will be spread from the brand new studio. Thank you so much for watching. We have some unbelievable guests coming up from the old studio and from the new studio. Until next time, inspiration is everywhere. L'Chaim. Living L'Chaim.